Good job. My man Ryan, thank you so much for coming on the Winner's Paradigm podcast, brother. It's an honor for me and Miss Mara over here to interview you today. But before I hop into it and talk about how much of an amazing dude you are, and I'm not just saying that to say it, I know you're good friends with my buddy Steele, and I seen you guys doing a live, and I was like, man, I got to get you on the show. Got to hear your story. Got to be able to help more men who are struggling. So thank you for coming on. Number one, brother. Two, would you mind giving us a brief intro, who you are, what you're passionate about, brother?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for the great intro, brother. It's an honor for me to be on here and to share my story with you, your audience. So like you just said, to help others, right? We got to help our other men and let them know they're not alone. But what I'm all about, man. I'm all about a person who made a lot of mistakes, found his way, connected with God, put God first, changed the way that I had, my totem pole, so to speak. It was me first before. So now I understand, put God first, and everything has fallen into place since. Um, I'm a man of conviction. I'm a man of wanting to help others, uplift everybody else, and help people like people help me. And I'm sure I'm going to hear about your story too. Helped you. I very easily cannot be here, meaning not on this planet, or in a cage still, or like I said, when I said not on the planet, buried, right? Like there's some things and some places that I've been and put myself into that, it just wasn't a good thing, but I made it through grace of God. And now, like you just said, we're here to share our story to help others and know that, hey, you don't have to go as far as we did, right? You don't have to even go that far. If you're even on the trend there, we're going to stop that right now and help you turn that around and go forward and be the best person you can be in this world.
Amen, brother. And I love that. People don't realize how short life is until those moments happen. And it's like that quote, a man won't change until the pain of or excuse me, the fear of reality hurts more than the pain of change itself. And it's powerful because we don't realize that until we get to the low points. Like I was telling you, for me, had the shooting incident with my stepdad, and I'm over here having these fucking violent thoughts. I didn't tell you the second part. Since I
Okay.
was around dumb shits all the time, one of my cousins was strung out on meth. So I'm in the schoolhouse thinking I'm doing better. And my mom calls me and she's like, hey, hi, baby. Thank you for
Mhm.
joining. Uh, my mom calls me and she's like, hey, your cousin got stabbed 8 times. And it just kind of hit me because he had two of my good buddies try to jump me because he started gangbanging. And I was like, that's not my thing for me because I literally had a vision that life was bigger, whatever, And one of my friends, his mom just passed away, but she was one of the first people that like really confided in me and would be like, hey, mijo, I see greatness in you. And for me, I was just like, nah, I don't see it. I just see this basic ass life, this shitty existence. It's never going to get better. So when you were talking about your story a little bit, brother, it resonated with me because I understand exactly how it is to just go through the motions in life and then to not do the things that you're called to do. So for you, brother, would you mind touching on those low points, where it was at, and what got you to flip the switch to become this disciplined being that you are today, brother?
Love it, man. Love it, bro. So I always like to say, like I had like you different, but like you, I'd say rough upbringing. I didn't have to worry about, luckily, thank God, I didn't have to worry about gangbanging and things like that. But we had it rough. Very violent household, especially in my younger years, from 0 to about 12. Um, First of all, shout out to my mom and dad who made it and who persevered and who turned the right of the ship. But they were young kids, being parents, doing the best that they possibly could. Right. So now I understand that now. But yeah, we had a rough, violent upbringing. A lot of I was around domestic violence. Obviously, I was a victim of that. My mom was, and there was that was just very commonplace for the cops to be at the house, for neighbors to get involved and break stuff up. I even had I took karate as a kid for a few years, and our instructor was across the street. My mom and me had a plan of what window do I sneak out? How do I get over there? And how do I go get him, to save my mom? So that was like year 0 to like to kindergarten. Like I was growing up already in kindergarten, a little kid, like I was going through a lot of that stuff, seen a lot of violence, and just exposed to things that we shouldn't be exposed to. Again, I didn't have a bad upbringing. I had a good, I knew right from wrong. But like everyone else, made a few mistakes, do this, do that. So again, I started, moving forward, doing good. I was doing better in school, doing good as a kid. I went to college, went to NAU. And I think that's where a little bit of me started to separate again a little bit because I because of what I went through with my parents, I felt that I outgrew them very young age. So one, I moved out of my house when I was a junior in high school. Two, though, but I stopped listening. Like they couldn't give me any advice, and I didn't. And again, this is wrong of me. I'm telling you where I was at
I
back
know
then.
that too well.
Right? Okay, yeah. So I was just like, I outgrew him. And also, I was kind of like, it was weird. I was looked at differently from my peers. Were like, oh, Ryan's like, you don't need to talk to his parents every day. Where all of my friends, I'm sure you have some friends like that talk to their parents every day. Couldn't live life without like their direction. I was already being
Bro,
command.
that was me when I got married. My wife talks to her family every day, and I used to give her shit for that. Bro, I need
Yeah.
to talk to them every fucking day. And then
Yes.
I was and then she's like, you don't talk to your parents. And I was like, nah, I ain't got anything to tell them every day. Like, I'm about business and getting to work every day. But I love that you said that. And sorry to interrupt, but
No, it's good.
that
I love it.
resonated with me because that was the same thing for me. Moved back in with my mom when I was 16. I knew I would get kicked out of the house, which I eventually did. So I would go home, do my chores every day, and I would leave. And then actually, my son's godfather is my best friend that I would be sleeping at his house, sleeping in his bed on the couch, like being there all the time because I didn't want to be home. So I know exactly how it feels, and especially when people don't understand that, and then they
Yes.
think, oh, Ryan's just different. He's just made different because whatever reason. You're like, bro, I didn't choose this. This is something that I had to become.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. And I think you sound like you're similar on this. I kind of like embodied it. Like I look at my friends too that were doing that. I'm like, dude, what's wrong with you? Who weak? What do you need you know what I mean? But I was a mistake. I'm telling you right now, everyone, this is when I started kind of falling apart, so to speak. I didn't have the guidance, the mentorship. I still had like this high school brain, so to speak, taking it into college. I end up getting my wife now pregnant right away. So I was 20 years old. So, you know what I'm saying? Like things were just starting to snowball a little bit. And I wasn't done with school yet. Um, just not knowing really what to do. And so I started chasing the wrong things. Right away was money. Money, 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 money. That's all that matters is money because I need the money to take care of the family. So that's what my focus was. The other piece of this that I didn't realize until later, is I wasn't present for my daughter. I had 2 daughters, one that's about to be 23, one that's gonna be 16, 7 years apart. So luckily I had a little bit of a chance to be different from my second one. But my first one is all about I'm going to school because I actually still went to school Tuesday and Thursday all day. And then I worked every day other than that because I had to. So there's really no days off. It's just what it was, what I did. But that gave me again wrong thought process of, oh, I can go out and do whatever I want. I'm making the money. I'm being, this is what I need to be. I wasn't being present with my kids. So I was already off to the wrong start. Wasn't present with my wife. No, you take care of this. I was a macho, masculine man that I saw my dad, model for me. So it was more like it was a dictatorship, right? I do what I do. I'd say what I say, and I don't care what you say. It doesn't bother me, right? So again, just creating bad habits right off the bat. I started living. So now I'm kind of fast forwarding my 20s, started living a double life because I just wasn't content at home. I kept looking for the stuff for the outside, right? Drugs. You mentioned meth. I got into that. I wasn't an everyday user, which really messed with me even more because I was like, oh, I don't have a drug problem. I'm not a drug addict, but I was a binger. I would go 2 or 3 months, maybe longer, nothing, perfect person. And then you and I, let's just say we hung out, had lunch together. You went left, I went right. And on the way home, I'm like, hold on, let me head back to my old spot, my old ghetto. Let me go back to the hood real quick and I want to get some of that drug. And that drug led me to other women because again, I was going outside for all my satisfactions, all to make me feel good about whatever I was doing because I wasn't feeling good about what I was in my life. So I was going outside for everything, right? And I was leading a double life. My professional life was actually taken off, as much as that crazy as that sounds, like it was actually taken off, but my personal life was just trouble, completely trouble. I was hurting people left and right, mentally, physically, spiritually, like just hurting people, not caring. Ended up starting a relationship with somebody else, moved out of my house completely, right? Just not knowing what I was doing. And then I'm going to start leading to the trouble here. So I'll start spreading it. One, I got so confused on what I was supposed to do. Back to my marriage, back to my daughters, with this person who now I have feelings for. I'm in such a mess. I didn't know what to do, dude. I tried to commit suicide. Like I was just so crazy. I ate over 90 Xanax pills. I just ate them. I just don't like it was. I remember when I did it too. I just did it, and I'm like, holy crap! What did that? Took off from my car. Luckily, grace of God, again, I was found at a Circle K. I wasn't out of it completely, but I was, a little bit out of it. I don't remember anything. Took me to the hospital, so on and so forth. Got out. Had to go to a psych ward for a week. So that was the beginning of, hey, something's going on, but I still didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to fix myself. I was just lost and embarrassed and ashamed, all that stuff. Now I'm like even less of a person than who I was before. So still confused, still going back and forth between everybody. And one day, man, I decided that I needed to come home. I know I needed to. It was just like just everything was going bad. Anyways, try to make a long story short, I was reckless at a bar, drank way too much alcohol. I mean, I was livid. I remember that part. I remember walking home mad and pissed off. So I'm living somewhere else. I walk home completely wasted, don't have a vehicle at the house. I go into the closet, start taking clothes out that I was moving out. The person that I was living there with was like, probably, what is going on? Seriously, it's like 2 a.m. I'm taking all my clothes. I'm putting it in her truck, not my car, because my car wasn't there. She tries to stop me. This is the part that's not good, but I'm being very honest about it. We got into it. I don't remember, unfortunately. I just know there was a lot. It was a very violent scene, a lot of blood. Neighbors got involved. 911 was trying to get called. I blocked all that. All right, caused a little bit of a problem with that. Took the car, took off, found my car where I was at, transferred all the clothes, called my wife, which I wasn't living with. This is like 4 years separated. Said, hey, I'm in trouble. I'm heading home. She's like, okay. Like, she didn't know what was going on. As soon as I pulled in the garage, that's where the lights lit me up. They were there waiting for me. They already knew where I was going to head, obviously. And I got arrested right there on the spot, brother. That was the beginning. That was November 22nd, 2014. That was the beginning of my transformation. It was happening already. Believe me. Like, once I was working for a financial institution. So I had certifications. I had a Series 7, 63, a 9, and a 10. That speaks to people in that industry. I'm just saying it, but all those got taken away because you can't have a felony with that. I got walked out of my job. I was in a big campus, like 5,000 people on campus, and I'm well known just because of who I was. Always been a good leader. Like I said, professionally, I was going well. So I had my colleagues walk up to me and said, call me to an office. I had no idea what was going on yet. They're like, hey, dude, we got word of what happened over the weekend. We got to walk you out. Like, you're done here. So I lost my freedom. Lost my dignity, lost my self-respect, lost my way to make an actual income. And now it's like, what do I do? Right? Like, everything got stripped away right then and there. So you can make a choice, right? You got a choice. You can just keep going down that road and just say, screw it. I give up, right? Give in. Or I knew I had a long road ahead of me, but my work was cut out for me. And I had 2 daughters that I love very much. I had a wife that cared for me and stuck by me and really showed me what unconditional love was. And I'm like, I can't let her down. Like, she took me right back in. Like, all right, Ryan, you got to make some changes. So I've said, basically, Ryan, whatever you've been doing, finally, it's not working. Stop, brother. Give in to God. Surrender. Let God take over. Because I didn't know what that meant before. I did not know what that. I used to make fun of. What does that mean? Give in to God. Like, well, okay, God, go ahead, take over my life. I didn't grasp it until I hit that deep, and I go, oh, okay. So my experience of going in, and I had to go into the cage and experience the other people around me and that lifestyle and what everything was going on. That's when it spoke to me that I need to start putting God first. And that's what started. Oh, I can't hear you. I don't know if you're talking or not.
We're good, brother. She said she didn't want to watch TV.
You're all good. Let me know if you need me to stop, slow down, or unpack any of this. But
No,
just let me know, dude. That's
amazing.
That was the ride, bro. That was the ride, man.
Amazing, brother. And good job. Amazing, brother. And that was something for me too, to where even now, got the little one with me on the podcast. And that's something I implement because I was being a shitty father, husband. And you mentioned it, going, working the job, fucking, bro. I was working 16 to 18 hours when I got off the Marine Corps. And that was doing home improvement sales. So driving all over Southern California, fucking slaving away, and then going to college at nighttime so I can get paid by the military and trying to figure it out. We had 2 miscarriages during that time. And really, when it was just me and the wife, I had this mentality of work hard so it's easier later on when we have kids. And luckily, daughter's on the way. And then even when she was here, I was like, man, I can't wait to get done with school, because then I can be present. Then I can be able to act upon, and I can be there. And what that was like, nah, that shit did not happen. I ended up getting a sales job and feeling more aligned there, but really was checking out. So saying that, because now it's being a present father, being the dad that I wasn't, being the husband that I wasn't. And that's why we're having a podcast interview. My daughter's right here. I got the son playing with some fucking stick in the background, and I'm gonna scrub it and make this audio look good. And that's what I tell people is, hey, I'm a dad first and foremost. This is what I do. And the reason why is because when my wife was gonna leave me, when I got on my knees and I said, hey, God, are you actually real? And if you are, could you tell me? I got a dream of me getting stabbed up, and I seen that as a vision, and I was like, you know what, I need to change my life around, because then seeing the funeral and being like, I wasn't the man that I admire, number one, but two, I wasn't the man that was living that. I get you 100% on what you were saying, because that was something that just kept playing in my head was, hey, you're repeating all the things you said were problems versus getting to work. So love that, brother. I love that story, your healing journey and really helping men, because I feel like that is something that today, is we're struggling with, is building that consistency, building that foundation. And that's something you talk about all the time, is if we're becoming that, we're putting God first. What do you recommend to that person that's building that foundation, who continually keeps struggling?
Yeah, no. So that was me, right? Like you're talking to me. It kept struggling. Like sometimes make it up, sometimes come back down. And here's another piece of it. Just before I get into that, that kind of I think tricks us sometimes as well. I was doing decently, like we put quotations financially, right? Just career wise, and so that kind of seems to mask things, right? Because you compare yourself. Well, I'm making this and I have that, so whatever I'm doing isn't that bad.
Yeah.
That's trouble. That's a red flag. So if that's the way you think, if that's how you're thinking, someone that thinks that, you need to have them watch this video. Okay, watch
Well,
this
I have a
podcast.
house,
Right.
so it's okay. And you're like,
Yeah, yeah.
no,
Oh,
it's
I get a
not.
house. The house is bigger than theirs. I have better cars. I make more money. Whatever it is, better vacations, or however you want to justify it. Right. That was a little bit of like how it hidden. Almost like I said, I wasn't a drug addict. I didn't do it every day, but I didn't have the discipline to say no when I really had that craving. So again, I was almost like, almost made it worse for me, right? Because I'm like, oh, I don't need to go to rehab. I don't need to go talk to anybody. I'm not a drug addict, right? So just just keep that in mind. So sorry. So your question was to go back to that. Ask your question one more time. I apologize.
What would you talk? Excuse me, tongue tied here. What would you say to that person who's really struggling at building their foundation to be consistent?
Got it. So, man, try to keep this quick, or not quick, but efficient. So you really got to be self-aware and know what you want out of life. I believe I say this in two ways. I learned this from two mentors already. One, shout out Ben Newman, really helped me. Has been helping me still with him. And then recently I've connected with Angie Wisdom. Very similar, but they have two different words, and I like both of them. You need to determine what your values are in life. What are your values? What do you value? Another word to say is, what are your standards? Now, the next thing, once you understand what those are, you put them on paper, you really lean into and understand it. The answer is easy, but doing it's hard. The answer is now make your decisions based off your values or your standards. Simple, right? Don't make it based off of how you're feeling right now in that moment or what your emotions are telling you in that moment. You will never get to where you're going to get to, or maybe you're going to get there 20 years later, right? So find out, what are your values? What are your standards? You got to put that work in. It doesn't just happen looking at a blank worksheet in 5 minutes. I've tried all that. I've even gotten frustrated and not been able to write any of it down. I had to Google what values were to get an idea, but that's what I did. Meaning I put in that. That's what I'm saying. It's not hard work, but you can't just give up and be like, I don't know what that says. That sounds stupid. That sounds lame. I was mad. I would have get up from the table mad because I'm like, it was taking too long to come up with something. I had to go to the gym, right? And I was like, no, Ryan, this is holding you back. Sit back down, get there and work on it. And I kept working on it day after day after day until the value spoke to me. Once the value spoke to me, I made the connection to make the decision based off of my value. Brother, that's would be the beginning of where I would start with somebody.
I love the way you said that, brother. And that was something that I realized for me too was quit the job. And so was working for a VA claims company, helping vets get the compensation they deserve, and thought that, all right, this could be me. But I maxed myself out on my commissions. Hey, baby, go play catch. And look, go help brother. And it was funny because the job told me, you're fine. The job told me, is your heart here? Is this really what you want to be doing? And it was funny because when I looked at things, I was like, this doesn't resonate with me. Once
You're good. You're good, bro.
my man, thank you, brother. I got the
Yeah,
Mickey
yeah.
Mouse running now. And then we got the little man's up
That's
here,
a little man. What's his name?
Adonis.
Oh, nice, bro. I love that. I love that.
Yeah. So I really get that, brother, because that was something for me too. Is when I was there, uh, Nanny moves to Minnesota, so I'm holding the daughter, making sales calls. Numbers drop for a week, and the fucking my manager call, or excuse me, I call my manager to tell him, hey man, this is what's going on. And of course, being the leader, being transparent, coming first, already have a solution in mind. And he's like, is your heart really here? And I'm like, you know what, fuck that. So I join in with the dude I was working with, and seven-figure entrepreneur, biggest guy in podcasting at the time, and think like, all right, this is what we're gonna do. So I go all in there, and it doesn't work out, you know. And it was funny because when I was at that low point, one of my friends, Nick Wingo, breathwork coach, just a raising human being,
Mm,
firefighter, he dealt with all his PTSD and shit. And he was telling me, hey man, you need to heal. You need to go through all this shit that you've been through and stop suppressing that pain. And I was just like, what are you talking about? And it was
yeah,
funny because
right.
very similar to what you're saying is he would say, like, oh, everything you need is within you. And I'm like, what the fuck do you mean is it's within me? And he's like, God is within you. I'm like, God's not within me. You don't know what I'm talking about. So get to that low point, feel that. And then my mentor, friend, Sean Michael Crane, me and him, I on a phone call, and he's like, hey, you need to live a disciplined life. He's like, you're talking about you when you're sticking to the macros and being working out. My problem wasn't working out. I work out every day. My problem was the nutrition. I like to eat whatever the fuck I want. And he was just telling me, he's like, the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. This is going to seep
Mm-hmm.
into every single thing you do. You don't put that
Mm-hmm.
cart back when you go to Target, whatever it is. This is
Mm.
how you act, and this is why your life is the way it is. And it was funny, brother, because that was something it was. It's like when I was drinking that gallon of whiskey and I was 19, 20 years old doing that shit, 21, I was my own boss then. So in the Marine Corps, I was like, oh, it's okay because I'm my own boss. I'm validating this shit.
Yep.
Oh, 22 getting a house. Oh, or sorry, 23 got a house. Oh, I got a house. Fucking, I'm doing better than these people. I can do whatever I want. And it's like, that's not the way life works. And two, you can't just have that mentality, like you said, because it's not going to serve you. It's not going to help you be the best you can be. So I really love that, brother, because for me, I went through that as well. And it caused me more immense pain. And now, when we're talking about being the disciplined versions of ourselves, showing up as that man we admire, being present,
Mhm.
it comes with a different energy. So,
Oh,
could you
ooh.
tap on that, brother, on what it's like now being fully present?
Dude, the best I've ever felt in my entire life. The absolute best I have ever felt. Never knew I would get here. So many things you just said there, and I don't, my mind will go a million because I want to hit all of them. I remember my wife has always been doing what her calling was. I remember this. And I used to be jealous. I mean, in a good way, not mad. I used to be like, ah, must be nice to know that this is your calling and this is what you're doing and just love what you do. I was similar to what you just said, bro. A couple of things you said. One was I was a hustler, so I will make money regardless of what it is, but then you're not living your true authentic self. Too young to understand that. I didn't care. I needed to make money. 1. 2, the gym was the one thing that I was excellent at. Excellent. And like both sides of it.
Mhm.
Fast forward a few years, that's what finally started. Because what you said, how you do one thing's how you do everything. That used to all like bounce off my head too. What do you mean by that? I used to get mad because I misunderstood things. When people, if you misunderstand, or if you get mad about certain things, when you hear people like us talk about whatever, maybe it's just because you misunderstand it. It's okay. I was there. I used to get mad about all this. Sometimes I wouldn't even finish the podcast. I'd shut it off and just like drive and be like, what do they mean by that? I don't understand, whatever that is. So just know sometimes you're going to hear a message that just doesn't resonate yet, but if it lingers, just hold on to it. It'll eventually talk to you. So then how you do one thing's how you do everything. I realized again, fast forward, wait a minute. I'm excellent in the gym. How do I add that to everything else that I do? And it was just like embracing it. How do I work out? Do I go in there and do a half ass? Excuse me. I'm saying I'm used to not cussing, right? No, you go in there and you go all out. Okay. So what about being a dad? No, dude, you've been like kind of in and out, like, hey, whatever. Okay. So now apply how you are in the gym to being a dad. So that was a little bit easier. All right, cool. And then I started applying it to my career, kind of backwards, right? But the kids' career, then I went to the wife, like started fixing things. Anyways, you asked, how do I feel? I feel the best I've ever felt right now because I'm living my true, authentic self life. I used to make me mad too. Tell me if you feel the same. When people say, I don't care what people think, I used to be like, yeah, you do. Everybody does. There is a point where all that goes away and you really don't care what people think. That is a truth. So if you don't believe that, you just haven't got there yet. I just want to ask you real quick. Did you have that thought of like similar, you know what I mean, to that?
I'm laughing because I went through that the other day with my wife. We're talking, and then I was like, this one dude pissed me off. She's like, wow. I was like, this motherfucker said everything isn't a competition. I was like, everything is a competition. And my wife was just like, well, you don't need to care about what other people think. I was like, no, you absolutely do. And it was funny because like we're talking about it. And I'm not trying to just say like take in and let your emotions, because that's where I would mess up in the past. Is oh, you said this, it's me against the world. You're on this list. I'm done with you, And I was like, no, it's not that.
I'm going to talk about that.
It's exactly that. Right now at this time, I'm channeling my energy for all good things, being positive. Before that, I don't come from a community of those things. So naturally for me, it's to block you out, but I don't have that philosophy anymore. It's more of, hey, at my table, we require excellence. We require the best you can be, and at least transparency. Mm-hmm. So if one of us is fucking up, you police them. The reason why I use profanity and I cuss and so forth is because I like to have fire under that man's ass who's really just holding back. Why? Because sometimes you need that. Sometimes I need that coach to be like, hey, man, stop being a bitch. I don't want to hear it, but he's true. It's like, it's going to tap in the way I grew up. How we talk to each other was not nice, and that's what I need for my personality. So it's funny is when I was talking to my wife about that, and I'm like, everything's a competition, but 2, you're showing that. I'm not trying to put it into a way where it's talking about, in a negative light. It's talking about is, hey, we got to be the best we can be. But 2, it's like, if you're in that inner circle, you're that friend, we're networking, whatever, you got to have that. I got to have you, Ryan, that could be here and be like, hey, man, you see me messing up my story. What are you doing? Or if I have a question and then you answer it, I got to have those people around. If you have all these yes people, it's going to lead you down that. I've already been there, done that. People validating, oh, well, you're doing all this. And, oh, you've been doing this since you were a kid. And it's like, it doesn't matter how much you validate. The work still needs to get done. But 2, like you said, it's the continually being your authentic self. And for me, I realized that the more disciplined I am, the more that I stick to that routine, the more that I stick to, hey, this is how I got to be, regardless of how I feel. And you mentioned that it just makes you a better human being. And you come, like I said multiple times, with the different energy. You said the same thing. You start vibrating differently. You start feeling it differently. All of a sudden, you're like, man, I didn't get this back then. And it's not because of whatever. It's just you weren't feeling it on that level because you haven't had that reps in versus to where now you're like, man, I just get up here and I just talk and blah, 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 versus maybe a year ago, it was not feeling that fluent.
No, a year ago, I'll be sweating. I'll be like, I'm going to do the show, but I'd be like, I wouldn't have even slept the night before, bro. That's how worried I would have been. But something you said, I really love what you talked about here. So going back to like not caring about what other people think again, that's how I used to live my life. right? Is what they think. What type of house, what type of clothes, what do I drive, what do I talk, how do I say, all that stuff. I got rid of all that. Now, something that, dang it, I don't want to lose this because you said something on here that I really wanted to talk on. You were talking about, so the compare. So I think maybe you're saying it this way, or at least this is what I heard. Cause I used to like the comparison or just watch me or chip on my shoulder. Like I lived that life because I had to prove people wrong my entire life. So I was always like, all right, F you, watch me. Now, what I'm saying is that can be good temporarily. This is what I believe now. I was living my life like that 100% of the time. So I was at 360 PSI all day long. That's not
That was me
sustainable.
as well.
That is not sustainable. That's when you start not being your real self, not know, and you just start reacting to life and attacking things and just like, it actually started being counterproductive. What used to work for me when I was younger, right? Just to get through a practice, get through a training camp, get through whatever it was that I was competing for, because I'm very competitive. I know you are as well. I would use that, but as soon as the competition is over, I'm back to me, right? But in life, it never turned off. And I started going down the wrong path because, again, I was just sending the wrong signals to the brain and focusing on the wrong things and getting further and further away from who I really was without even knowing it, dude. So that's what I really wanted to touch on, as far as I remember that. And it did help me. Every once in a while, I still tap into it, especially at the gym. I'll tap into that, but I'm well aware of myself now. I really am. And you got to be responsible enough to know that, okay, hold on, let's get back to a good frequency, right? Like that frequency is just to push through that workout, whatever that may be. Maybe that's not even the right thing. Just letting you know that's where I'm at now, but I feel more of self-awareness, intentional self-awareness of how I'm feeling. Is this feeling serving me? And if not, what do I need to do to change it so I can get back on track?
Man, that hit, for me, it's really the same. I'd say with social media, you see so many people and then you're like, yeah, dude, you're full of it. And for me, you got to match that actions with your words. And I don't feel like that. Like for me to applaud somebody and be like, bro, you're the real fucking deal, you got to be doing something crazy. I just don't hand that out to people. I definitely believe in gratitude and telling people who they are. But for me, like if I'm giving somebody high praise and I'm endorsing you with everything, I believe 100% fully in you. And I know I can count on you every time. If not, it's like, hey, bro, I love what you're doing, but we may not have that relationship. So for me, it was the same thing. And it's like reading somebody or hearing something and seeing, and you're just like, man, I don't know, but two, I've been there. So I know exactly what it's like to be talking a big game and not really doing that, or being the guy that does shit behind closed doors. For me, it was that, it was like
Me too.
having that, I had a couple instances where I could have just fucked up in the military. And I was just like, I can't be continuously living and being like, oh, whatever it is, saying the wrong thing as a leader. So even now, that is something, I'm cognizant of. And especially when that comes up, I'm like, man, I need to work on it. And it was funny is I did a 10-day fast, and here goes my ego. It was only supposed to be a 86. And then I'm like, that's not even 4 days. So moving to 7 days, wife's going through this whole medical journey that hasn't been fun. And from the 7, I was like, I'm going to do 10. So I did 10. And it was funny because on the fast, what I realized is all the shit we think is important doesn't fucking matter.
Yeah.
Like food, it doesn't matter if it really comes down to it.
Not
You're
as
going to
much.
eat. You're
Mhm.
fortunate. Shut up. Like, what else do we need to
Yes.
complain about? And that's what like I was learning for myself. And it was just clear. And it was funny because after that, I was getting upset with people like, I can't fast, blah, blah, blah. And it went into it, and I'm getting pissed off. And I'm like, these fucking people, I can relapse around them. And here goes my thought process, because we're talking about the way we grew up and the way that we got each other,
Yeah.
which temporarily it's good. And then one of my coaches was like, hey, man, I told you about mindset coaching and you need to help people here. Well, this is a sign that you can do it. And now you're getting frustrated by it. So it's something you need to be doing. And I'm like, that's
Wow.
right. It's like
There it is.
you get signs for what it is. And for me,
Yeah.
it's like, I don't understand how you can't feel this good. I don't know how you can't feel happy in to look yourself in the mirror and lie to yourself. And it was funny because I said that. And then my wife was like, well, I didn't think you were going to do the 10-day fast because I never did anything of that nature. So it was funny as I learned more about myself, but then in turn, all those teachings that I was pushing out came back to me tenfold.
Yes.
And I
Yeah.
started seeing like, man, I need to be a better leader
Mhm.
because I'm pushing that I'm a badass, but why don't we create other badasses in interlink with other people like yourself, brother, who do the same thing. So it went from doing that. And it was funny because literally, even the podcast, brother, I was thinking about it last night. And I've always published one a week or multiple a week. And now getting lives every single day. And I started changing that dialogue of I do instead of saying I get to or whatever. I understand the gratitude being in the moment. But for me, what's working right now is I do. Every day I do lives. Every day I do show up present with the family.
I
Every
like
day I
that,
do a
man.
workout. Every day I don't complain. Or excuse me, every day I do not complain. So I started focusing that I do. And it was funny because I was like, every week I need to focus on putting out more content. It was like, how do I do that? Well, I do this every day. Oh, I might start recording here pretty soon, podcast every day. And I was like, oh, it's going to take time and commitment. Well, what do you want? You know, and it was funny. It's like, I was just listening to myself and
Yes.
I'm always talking about it, you know, and then you start realizing all the shit you're saying. And you're like, man, I can do so much better than what I'm at. So I love it, brother. I really loved you coming on today and I'd love to have you on again in the future.
Yeah, bro. I'm
But
down.
we'll wrap it up here with the last question, brother. So I've been
Sure.
vigilant of your time. What would you say to the previous version of ourselves? We don't know where to start. We just want to align ourselves with our definition of success.
Ooh, we say, what do I say to my previous self? You know what? I've mentioned this before. This is something new, but I just started realizing this. Um, we need to trust ourselves more. I had that little voice in my head telling me some things that I needed to do that I didn't listen to. I didn't give it credit. I didn't trust myself. I was like, "Oh, that's whatever." And now other people have done and said things that I had thoughts on, not talking about creations, but I'm like, "Oh, I was onto something. I really was heading down the right path. That was something. That wasn't me thinking I was weird. I thought I was like, if I were to tell somebody back then the thoughts I was having, I'm like, they're gonna think I'm crazy, bro. Like, what drugs are you doing? Like, you hallucinating?" But no, it's trust your intuition more. The intuition is the Holy Spirit in you. Okay. That's what it is. And I've learned that that voice says something, you need to listen to it more and do not shut that down. If I would have listened to that voice earlier, the path is the path. You and I both know that now. But for somebody else, listen to that voice sooner than later, so you don't put yourself in a bad spot and have to fight out of it like we did.
Oh, I love that, brother, because it's the same as when you're doing shit that's wrong. You know what you're doing it
No,
wrong because it doesn't feel right. Or
yeah,
even you have that thought in your mind, and then you're like, I'm fine, you know,
yeah.
I'll be all
I can get
right,
away
you
with
know.
this.
And then
I'll make it work. It'll happen.
it,
She'll never know. He'll never, whatever. All of that stuff. All of it, man.
been
Good and
there,
bad.
done
Good
that.
point. Good point on talking about both sides because I didn't even think about that. It is both sides. You know what you should be doing. You know what you shouldn't be doing. Stop suppressing it. Listen to it now. You're on to
Uh,
something if you have those thoughts.
100%, you know, and again, it's those outside influences we gotta monitor and figure out. So I love the way that we capped that off because that was perfect, brother. Where can people find you if they want to keep up with you? They want to hear more of your story, brother.
Sweet, man. Appreciate that, dude. The easiest way for me is on Instagram at real Ryan Overcash. I'm pretty active on there. It's probably the best one to reach me on anytime. I'm open. If you guys want any more in-depth talk about, what we just talked about today, or let me know what's bothering you, feel free. I love helping people. I love knowing your story and seeing what I can do to get you going.
Awesome, brother. Well, we'll definitely have that in the link or in the show notes
Thank
so everybody can check you out, brother. And I really appreciate you for coming on today. It was an immense honor. And I know there's a lot of value that's out there to that man who's struggling. So if you are struggling, just keep fucking going. Don't quit. Because as you heard the man Ryan say, you know, if you don't give up on yourself, you continually dissect everything and then delude the bad away, you're going to understand what's important to you, who you actually are, and what you need to live your life by. So I appreciate you, my man. Thank you again, brother.
you. God bless, brother. Thank you for having me on. Absolute pleasure. This is awesome.